3 minutes before my engagement toast, my mother raised her glass and invited my ex-boyfriend to take my fiancé's place. The private dining room went silent. Ethan's hand was still in mine. My father stared at his plate. My sister lifted her phone. Then the doors opened. Brandon walked in wearing a navy suit and the same smug smile he had when he left me crying in a hospital parking lot 2 years earlier. My mother looked straight at Ethan and said, "No offense, sweetheart, but Brandon was always her real match." What my mother didn't know was that Ethan already knew. 6 days earlier, I had found the envelope she thought I would never see. Inside, it was the plan to humiliate me in front of both families. I was 32 when I finally realized my mother did not want me happy. She wanted me controlled. Ethan Miller was the first man who made love feel calm, not something I had to earn. Our engagement dinner was supposed to be simple. Just close family, a private room, white tablecloths, candles, and a printed menu that said, "Congratulations, Lauren and Ethan." For once, I wanted a family moment that did not become a performance. But nothing involving my mother had ever been simple. My mother, Diane Hayes, had built her whole life around appearances. She could insult you softly enough that strangers thought she was being polite. She could turn any room into a stage. And somehow, she was always the wounded heroine. Growing up, I thought my mother was protective. Then I got older and realized protection was just the word she used when control sounded too ugly. Ethan saw it before I could name it. "She can be intense," I told him once. "She means well. She just worries." Ethan had listened quietly, then asked, "Does she make you feel loved or managed?" That question stayed with me for months. Because the truth was, my mother had managed everything. My clothes, my career, my friendships, my body, my voice, and most painfully, my relationships. Especially Brandon. Brandon Cole was everything my mother wanted for me on paper. Money, family name, country club manners. When I brought him home, she acted like I had delivered her a trophy. She never asked if he made me happy. Brandon did not take care of me. He corrected me. My laugh, my clothes, my career, even the way I spoke to waiters. At first, he did it with teasing. "You're really wearing that. Don't get emotional, Lore. You don't need to work so hard, my wife won't have to hustle like that." His wife. He said it before he ever proposed, like I was a position he planned to fill. My mother loved that. She said it meant he was serious. But serious is not the same as safe. The night I finally left Brandon, I had a fever of 103. I had been sick for 3 days and he was supposed to drive me to urgent care. Instead, he told me he had a client dinner and left me in his apartment with a bottle of water and a text that said, "Try not to be dramatic." I drove myself. I remember sitting in that hospital parking lot, shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone, calling my mother because I was scared. She answered on the 3rd ring. I said, "Mom, I think I need help." She sighed. Not worried. Annoyed. Then she said, "Lauren, don't start a fight with Brandon over this. Men like him are busy. You need to learn not to punish people for having responsibilities." That was the moment something in me broke. I walked into urgent care alone. And the next morning, I packed my things before Brandon came back. He didn't chase me. He sent one message. "You'll regret embarrassing yourself." My mother called 8 times that day. Not to ask if I was okay. To ask if I had apologized. For 2 years after that, she brought him up like a dead dream I had personally murdered. "Brandon asked about you." Brandon's business is expanding. Brandon's mother said he still cares. Brandon would have given you stability. Then I met Ethan. Ethan was not flashy. He restored old homes for a living, wore work boots more than dress shoes, and never made me feel like love was a courtroom where I had to prove I deserved mercy. The first time he met my mother, she smiled at him with that polished southern charm and asked where he saw himself in 5 years. Ethan said, hopefully still building a life where Lauren feels peaceful. My mother laughed like he had made a joke. I knew then she would hate him. Not because he was rude. Because he saw me as a person. 6 months after Ethan proposed, my mother insisted on hosting the engagement dinner. I said no at first. Ethan said we can do something smaller. But my father called me quietly 2 days later. Let her have this, he said, she feels left out. That was my father's role in our family. He translated my mother's control into softer sentences. She's just hurt. She means well. You know how she is. I did know how she was. That was the problem. Still, I agreed. I told myself it was one dinner. 2 hours. Maybe 3. I told myself Ethan and I would survive it, go home, and laugh about whatever passive-aggressive comment she made. I did not know she had already prepared something much worse than a comment. I found out 6 days before the dinner. It was a Tuesday afternoon, raining hard enough that the streets looked silver. I had gone to my parents' house to pick up a box of old photos my mother said she had found for the wedding slideshow. She wasn't home when I arrived. My father let me in and said the box was in the study. The study had always been my mother's command center. The box of photos was on the desk. Beside it was a cream envelope with my name written on it. Not Lauren. Just LH. Like I was another object she had organized. I picked it up. Inside were printed emails, a guest list, a seating chart for the engagement dinner, and a handwritten note on my mother's stationery. At first, I thought it was just her over-planning. Then I saw Brandon's name. Front center. Arrival after toast. Diane introduces him. My stomach went cold. I turned the page. There were text messages printed out between my mother and Brandon. My hands started shaking before I even understood what I was reading. Brandon had written, "She won't listen if I just reach out, she blocked me everywhere." My mother had replied, "She listens when she is embarrassed, I know my daughter." Another message from Brandon. "You're sure Ethan won't make a scene?" My mother. "Ethan is too polite, Lauren will freeze, she always does." I sat down in my mother's chair and kept reading. Brandon wanted both families there. My mother said yes. No friends. Just family. Easier to trap me. Then came the line that made me press my hand over my mouth. Brandon wrote, "I appreciate you doing this. I told my father we're fixing the Lauren issue." The Lauren issue. Not heartbreak. Not history. An issue. Then I found the bank transfer receipt. $5,000 from Brandon's company to my mother. Memo, event coordination. My engagement dinner had been bought and staged. I kept digging. There was a typed letter with Brandon's signature at the bottom. It was not romantic. It was strategic. He wrote that reconnecting with me would repair family reputation concerns after his recent failed business merger. He wrote that my stable public image and community volunteer work would be useful. He wrote that our reconciliation could benefit both families socially. Then he added, Diane agrees that Lauren responds best when the emotional stakes are made public. I stood so fast the chair hit the wall. For a second, I could not breathe. Because that sentence was true in the worst way. My mother did know that about me. She knew I froze in public. She knew I would rather swallow humiliation than create a scene. She knew I had spent my whole life protecting her image. And she had planned to use that training against me. Again, I heard the front door open downstairs. My mother's voice floated through the hall. Lauren. I shoved the papers back into the envelope, then froze. If I put it back, I would have no proof. If I took it, she would know. Then I saw the box of photos. I slid the envelope under the stack of old albums and picked up the whole box. My mother appeared in the doorway with a smile that did not reach her eyes. You found them, she said. Yes, I said. Her eyes moved from my face to the box. For 1 second, I saw suspicion. Then she smiled again. I chose some beautiful ones of you and Brandon too, she said. I looked at her. She tilted her head. You know, just in case you want to remember happier chapters. I said, I'm engaged to Ethan. And I'm very happy for you, she replied. But her eyes were already on the box. I hugged it against my chest and said, I need to go. She stepped aside. Not because she trusted me. Because she believed she still controlled the room. When I got to my car, I locked the doors before I even started the engine. Then I opened the envelope again. I took pictures of every page with my phone. The text, the receipt, the letter, the seating plan, the dinner timeline. My mother had written the timeline like a production schedule. 7:00 Diane welcome toast. 7:05 Brandon enters. 7:10 allow Brandon to speak. 7:15 pressure Lauren privately if needed. My engagement dinner was not a celebration. It was a trap. When I got home, Ethan was in the kitchen making soup. He looked up once and turned off the stove immediately. What happened? That was the thing about Ethan. He did not need me to perform distress before he believed it. I handed him the envelope. He read every page at the counter without interrupting. But when he reached the bank transfer, his jaw tightened. He put the paper down like it was poisonous. Then he looked at me and said, Lauren, this isn't meddling, this is a setup. I nodded. I could not speak yet. He came around the counter. Did she know you saw it? I don't think so. Do you want to cancel the dinner? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to cancel the dinner, the wedding, the whole idea of family gatherings forever. But then I thought about my mother smiling across from me for the rest of my life, telling people I had overreacted. I thought about Brandon calling me unstable. I thought about my father saying she meant well. I thought about my sister posting some vague quote about forgiveness and family loyalty. And I realized something. If I canceled quietly, they would control the story. Again, I looked at Ethan and said, no. His eyes searched mine. I said, I want to let her do exactly what she planned. He was silent. Then he asked, and then. I touched the envelope. Then I stopped freezing. That night, we made copies of everything. Ethan scanned the envelope, saved the files, and backed them up. If my mother wanted a public scene, I would bring public proof. Then I called my best friend Mara. Mara had known me since college. She had watched me survive Brandon. She had watched my mother turn every painful thing in my life into a lesson about how I should have behaved better. When I told her what I found, she said nothing for almost 10 seconds. Then she said, "I'm coming to that dinner. It's family only." Then I'm your family. I cried for the first time that night. Not because I was weak. Because someone had said the exact thing I needed without making me beg for it. The next morning, I called the restaurant. I asked for the manager and explained that I needed to add one guest to our private room. The manager said my mother had already finalized the count. I said, "I'm the bride." There was a pause. Then he said, "Of course, ma'am." I added Mara. Then I asked another question. "Does the private room have a screen?" He said yes, for business presentations. "Can it connect to a laptop?" "Yes." "Good," I said, "I may need it." I did not tell my mother. For the next 6 days, I let her believe I knew nothing. She planned the flowers, the seating, the toast, and my humiliation. I kept saying okay. Not because I agreed. Because villains get careless when they think they have already won. 2 days before the dinner, my mother arrived with a pale blue dress I had not asked for. "I thought you might want something more appropriate," she said. I looked at the dress. Expensive, elegant, completely not me. "That's not my style," I said. "It used to be." "No," I said, "it was your style on me." Her face tightened. "You've changed." I looked at her and said, "Yes." She zipped the bag slowly. "I hope you're not planning to be difficult at your own engagement dinner." Difficult. That was what she called me whenever I developed a spine. I said, "I'm planning to be honest." Her eyes narrowed for half a second. Then she kissed my cheek. "Cold." "Honesty is wonderful," she said, "as long as it doesn't become cruelty." After she left, Ethan locked the door behind her. Then he leaned back against it and said, "She knows something feels different." "Good," I said. But my hands were shaking. Because courage does not always feel like strength. Sometimes it feels like terror that has decided to keep walking. The night before the dinner, Brandon emailed me. I stared at his name in my inbox like it was a stain. Subject line: "Hope we can talk." I opened it with Ethan sitting beside me. "Lauren, your mother told me about the dinner. I hope you'll be mature enough to have a real conversation. Some people are meant to come back when the timing is right." Brandon. No apology. No specifics. No mention of leaving me sick. No mention of the cruel messages. Just misunderstandings. Just mature conversation. Just my mother told me. I replied with one sentence. "Looking forward to hearing what you have to say." Ethan read it and looked at me. "That's all. That's all." Brandon answered within 4 minutes. "Me too. I think your family will be happy to see us in the same room again." I took a screenshot. By then, I was not even angry in the way I expected. I was focused. Clear. Like after years of living underwater, my head had finally broken the surface. The engagement dinner was on a Friday evening. I wore a black dress. Simple. Fitted. Mine. Ethan wore a charcoal suit and the tie I had bought him for his birthday. Before we left, he stood in front of me in our bedroom and held out his hand. Inside his palm was my engagement ring. I looked down. I had taken it off earlier to put lotion on and forgotten to put it back. He said, "Only if you still want this night to be ours." I looked at him. There was no pressure in his face. No panic. No wounded ego. Just choice. That almost broke me more than my mother's betrayal. Ethan did not try to prove himself. He gave me a choice. I took the ring and slid it on. I want this night to be ours, I said, even if they tried to steal it. He kissed my forehead. Then we go together. The restaurant looked perfect. Warm lights, white flowers, double glass doors. My father looked nervous. My mother looked flawless. That was always the warning sign. She wore the expression she used when people praised her for raising such lovely daughters. When she saw my dress, her eyes flicked down. Just once. Then she smiled. Black, she said. I smiled back. Elegant, isn't it? Her mouth twitched. Ethan's hand touched the small of my back. Not to guide me. To remind me he was there. Mara arrived 5 minutes after we did. My mother saw her and stiffened. Lauren, she said softly, I thought this was family only. Mara stepped forward before I could answer. It is, she said and hugged me. My mother's face did something almost invisible. A crack in the porcelain. Then she laughed lightly. Of course, the more the merrier. No one who knew her believed that. Dinner began with painfully normal small talk. But my mother kept moving around the room like a director checking camera angles. She adjusted a chair, whispered to a waiter, touched my shoulder twice. Each time I felt the old urge. Sit straighter. Smile better. Don't upset her. Then I looked at Ethan, calm across the table. His left hand rested on the table. Beside it was a small black flash drive. No one else noticed. I did. My mother had arranged the seating so I was between Ethan and her, as if I were a rope in a tug-of-war. Halfway through dinner, she leaned toward me and whispered, "You seem tense." I said, "Do I?" "Yes, try to relax, tonight is important." I looked at her. For who? Her smile stayed in place. For everyone who loves you. Across the table, my sister lifted her phone again. Not obviously. Just enough. Paige had always been my mother's echo. She did not invent cruelty. She repeated it in a prettier voice. So when she lifted her phone, I knew exactly whose side she was on. At exactly 7 o'clock, my mother tapped her knife gently against her glass. The room quieted. My pulse moved into my throat. Ethan's hand found mine under the table. My mother stood. "My dear family," she began, "and our new friends." She looked at Ethan's parents when she said friends. Not family. Friends. We are gathered tonight to celebrate Lauren and Ethan. My father nodded too quickly. He knew something was coming. My mother continued. As a mother, all I have ever wanted is my daughter's happiness. Mara made a sound so small only I heard it. My mother placed a hand over her heart. Lauren has always been sensitive, deeply emotional, sometimes impulsive. Those of us who know her best understand that she feels things very strongly. There it was. The setup. Before the knife, she softened the room with concern. I know some people may think I'm overprotective, she said with a small laugh, but a mother sees what others don't. Ethan's thumb moved once over my knuckles. My mother turned slightly so she could face both me and the room. And sometimes love means having the courage to tell the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. The glass doors opened. Brandon walked in. For 1 second, nobody understood what was happening. Then my aunt whispered, "Is that Brandon?" My father closed his eyes. So he knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Brandon paused at the entrance like he had rehearsed it. Navy suit, silver tie, polished shoes. Handsome in the empty way expensive furniture can be handsome. My mother's face shone with triumph disguised as emotion. Some people come into our lives for a reason, she said. Some bonds are not so easily broken. Brandon walked toward us. My stomach turned, but I did not move. My mother looked at Ethan. No offense, sweetheart, but Brandon was always her real match. A sound moved through the room. Jacques, discomfort. A little gasp from Carol. Ethan did not stand. He did not shout. He looked at my mother and said, "That's an interesting thing to say at our engagement dinner." His calmness bothered her. I could see it. She expected anger. Anger would have helped her. Anger would have made Ethan look insecure. Instead, he gave her a mirror. My mother laughed softly. "Oh, Ethan, I know this must be hard, but Lauren and Brandon have history, real history. Sometimes young women choose safety when what they need is to face what they ran from." I almost smiled. Because she had just described herself perfectly and still thought she was describing me. Brandon stopped near the head of the table. "Lauren," he said. My name in his mouth felt like a hand closing around my wrist. "Brandon," I said. He looked surprised that I spoke so evenly. "I know this is unexpected," he said. "No," I said, "it is." The room shifted. My mother's eyes snapped to me. Brandon blinked. "I mean," he said carefully, "I know there's a lot of emotion here." "There is," I said, "but not confusion." My mother's smile sharpened. "Lauren, sweetheart, let him speak." That word, sweetheart, she used it like a leash. I turned to her. I want everyone to hear him." Brandon recovered. He always did. He looked around the room with that practiced humility men like him use when they are about to ask for something they have not earned. "First, I want to apologize for any pain I caused," he said. Any pain. Not the pain. Not what he actually did. Just enough apology to sound decent without being accountable. My mother nodded like he had confessed to a parking ticket. "But I never stopped caring about Lauren," Brandon said, "and when Diane reached out, I realized maybe there were unresolved feelings that deserved a chance to be addressed before this wedding moves forward." Ethan's father pushed back from the table slightly. Carol's face had gone pale. My aunt looked at my mother like she had brought a snake to dinner and called it a centerpiece. Brandon turned to Ethan. "I respect you, man, I really do, but I think we both know Lauren deserves to be sure." Ethan looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "She is." 2 words. Quiet. Complete. Brandon smiled. "We'll let her speak for herself." I looked down at my plate. Not because I was scared. Because I needed one breath before I burned down the stage they had built for me. Then I stood. My chair made a soft sound against the floor. Every face turned toward me. My mother's eyes were warning me. I knew that look. It had followed me through childhood dinners, school events, church halls, and family photos. Do not embarrass me. Do not contradict me. Do not make people uncomfortable. I picked up my purse from the back of my chair. From inside it, I removed the cream envelope. My mother's face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. The first true fear of the night. I held the envelope where everyone could see it. "Before Brandon continues," I said, I think everyone deserves to understand why he is here." My father whispered, "Lauren." I looked at him. "No, Dad, not this time." The room went so quiet I could hear the restaurant music through the closed doors. My mother stepped toward me. "Lauren, whatever you think you're doing." "I'm telling the truth," I said. "Isn't that what you said love requires?" She stopped. Ethan stood then. Not in front of me. Beside me. Mara stood too. On my other side. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel like a daughter facing a court. I felt like a woman with witnesses. I opened the envelope. "This is the seating chart for tonight," I said. Brandon was assigned to arrive after my mother's toast. I placed the first page on the table. My uncle leaned forward. My sister stopped recording for half a second, then started again. "Good. Let her." "This is the timeline," I continued. "It says Diane welcome toast. Brandon enters, Diane emotional statement, allow Brandon to speak, pressure Lauren privately if needed." Someone whispered, "Oh my God." My mother said that is completely out of context. I looked at her. "Then you'll love the context." I nodded to Ethan. He picked up the flash drive and walked to the side of the room where the screen was mounted. My mother's voice dropped. "Lauren, don't you dare." There she was. Not wounded. Not loving. Afraid. Ethan connected his laptop. The screen lit up. The first screenshot appeared. I read it aloud so no one could pretend they misunderstood. "Brandon, she won't listen if I just reach out. She blocked me everywhere." I looked at him. His face had gone gray. "My mother, she listens when she is embarrassed. I know my daughter." The room was still. I read the next one. "Brandon, you're sure Ethan won't make a scene?" My mother, "Ethan is too polite. Lauren will freeze, she always does." Carol covered her mouth. Ethan's father said very softly, "Jesus." My mother lifted her chin. "You stole private messages." I almost laughed. "That's your defense." She looked around the room. I was trying to prevent my daughter from making a mistake. "No," I said, "you were trying to force one." The next slide appeared. The bank transfer receipt. $5,000. Cole Residential Holdings to Diane Hayes Consulting. Memo, event coordination. The room changed then. Betrayal hurts. But payment clarifies. My aunt said, "Diane, what is that?" My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Brandon stepped forward. "That was not what it looks like." Mara said, "It looks like you paid her." He shot her a look. I turned to him. "Did you?" He adjusted his cuff. A tiny, arrogant gesture. It was a thank you for helping arrange a conversation. "A conversation," I said. I clicked the next slide myself. The signed letter filled the screen. Brandon's words. Reconnecting with Lauren could repair family reputation concerns. Her stable public image would be useful. Diane agrees that Lauren responds best when the emotional stakes are made public. I did not read that one aloud immediately. I let them read it. I watched the words move across their faces. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. My sister lowered her phone. My mother stared at the screen with the helpless fury of someone watching her private cruelty appear in court. Then I read the last line aloud. Diane agrees that Lauren responds best when the emotional stakes are made public. I turned to the room. That is why he is here, not love, not closure, not destiny, a business reputation, a family image, a public trap. Brandon's mask cracked. Lauren, you're twisting this. I faced him. You left me alone when I was sick enough to need urgent care. He looked irritated. Not ashamed. I continued. You called me dramatic. You told me I'd regret embarrassing myself. Then 2 years later, when your business image needed repair, you paid my mother to humiliate me at my engagement dinner. He said, that is not fair. No, I said, it wasn't fair when it happened to me, it's just public now. My mother's voice cut through the room. Enough. There was the real Diane. Sharp. Cold. Done pretending. She turned on me with tears already forming, perfect and weaponized. I did what any mother would do when she sees her daughter throwing her life away. Ethan moved slightly, but I touched his arm. This was mine. My mother pointed at him. You barely know this man, he fixes houses. Brandon could give you a life. I said, I already have a life. She laughed once. Cruel and disbelieving. You have a job you overwork yourself for, an apartment with second-hand furniture, and a fiancé who will never understand the world you came from. Ethan's mother stood. My son understands respect, she said. That seems to be more than some people at this table can manage. My mother ignored her. Her eyes stayed locked on me. You think this is strength, she asked, making a spectacle of your family. I felt the old guilt rise. The familiar burn behind my ribs. Then I looked at the screen. At her words. Lauren will freeze. She always does. And something inside me steadied. No, I said, the spectacle was yours, I just brought the receipts. A few people gasped. Mara smiled through tears. My mother's face flushed. You ungrateful little. My father stood. Diane. One word. But it was the first time in my life I had heard him use it like a wall. She turned on him. Don't you start. He looked at the screen, then at me. His mouth trembled. I didn't know about the money. I believed him. Not because he was innocent of everything. He was not. He had enabled her for years. He had softened her cruelty until I doubted my own pain. But he looked genuinely broken by that receipt. My mother snapped it wasn't about money. My father said, then why did you take it? Silence. That silence did more than shouting ever could. My mother looked around for an ally. My sister stared at her lap. My aunt looked away. Brandon reached for his phone. Maybe to call someone. Maybe to pretend he had somewhere more important to be. I said, Brandon, before you go, I want you to answer one question. He looked at me with open contempt now. What? Did you come here because you love me? His jaw shifted. The room waited. He said, I came here because your mother said you were confused. I nodded slowly. There it was. Not yes. Not love. Just control passed from one hand to another. I turned to my mother. And did you invite him because you love me? Her tears spilled now. You are my daughter. That's not an answer. I know what's best for you. That's not love. She stepped closer. I gave you everything. No, I said, you gave me conditions and called them everything. Her face crumpled, but I no longer trusted her tears. Then I said the line I had carried in my chest for 6 days. You didn't lose me because I chose Ethan. You lost me because you kept trying to own me. No one moved. Even Brandon looked down. My mother whispered, "How dare you?" I said, "I learned from the best." That was when my sister started crying. Not loudly. Not for me. For the room, maybe. For the collapse of the family story she had helped protect. She looked at me and said, "Lauren, maybe we should talk privately." I shook my head. No, private is where this family hides the truth. She flinched. Good. Some truth should sting. My mother reached for the envelope. Ethan caught it first. He did not yank it. He simply placed his hand over it. "Don't," he said. His voice was quiet. But every person in that room heard the line in it. My mother looked at him like she could finally see that politeness was not weakness. Brandon exhaled sharply. "This is insane. I'm not staying here to be attacked." Mara said, "You came to someone else's engagement dinner to reclaim her like a misplaced jacket. Leaving is probably your best idea." A stunned laugh escaped my uncle. Brandon's face hardened. He looked at me one last time. "You've changed." I said that was the plan. He left. No apology. No final speech. Just a man walking out after realizing the room no longer belonged to him. The glass doors closed behind him. My mother watched him go like her last card had been taken from her hand. Then she turned back to me, and for the first time all night she looked small. "Not sorry. Just exposed." She said, "After everything I sacrificed for you." I said, "You sacrificed my peace for your pride." My father sat down slowly. His eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," he said. My mother whipped around. "For what?" He looked at her. "For letting this become normal." That broke something in the room. My aunt started crying quietly. Ethan's mother came to my side and took my hand. Not replacing my mother. Not trying to. Just standing where a loving woman would stand when another woman's daughter had been publicly wounded. My mother saw it. And I think that hurt her more than the evidence. Another mother had protected me in the same room where mine had tried to corner me. I took a breath. Then I turned to the guests. "I'm sorry this dinner became this." Ethan squeezed my hand. Then he said, "I'm not." Everyone looked at him. He looked at me. "I'm sorry you were hurt," he said, "but I'm not sorry the truth is here. Our marriage will not begin with you swallowing another humiliation." I almost cried then. Not because the room was watching. Because for the first time, someone had named the cost. Swallowing humiliation. That was what I had done for years and called it being mature. Being respectful. Being a good daughter. Ethan turned to the room. "Lauren and I came here to celebrate our engagement. That is still what I'm here to do. Anyone who wants to celebrate with us is welcome to stay." Then he looked at my mother. "Anyone who came to control her can leave." My mother's lips parted. No sound came. My father stood again. He did not look at her this time. He looked at me. "I'd like to stay," he said, "if you'll allow me." That question hurt. Because it was the first time my father had asked permission instead of asking me to give it. I nodded. He sat down. My mother stared at him. "You're choosing this." He said, "I'm choosing not to lie." She grabbed her purse. Her movements were quick now. Ugly. The performance had ended, and she had no costume left except anger. At the door, she turned back. You will regret humiliating your mother." I looked at her. "No," I said, "I regret believing humiliation was love." She left. The door closed. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Mara lifted her glass. "To Lauren," she said, who did not freeze. One by one, the room joined her. My father was last. "To Lauren," he whispered. I looked around that room. The candles were still burning. The menu still said congratulations, Lauren and Ethan. My mother had tried to turn that dinner into a trial. But somehow, after she left, it became a blessing. Not the kind with perfect speeches and smiling photos. The real kind. The kind where truth finally has a seat at the table. 20 minutes later, Ethan took a bite of lemon tart and said, "Honestly, this is pretty good." Everyone laughed because we needed permission to breathe. I laughed too. A real laugh. Messy. Relieved. Mine. My father did not try to explain my mother that night. He did not say she meant well. He did not ask me to call her. He just sat beside my aunt, staring at his folded hands. Near the end of dinner, he came over to me. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. Ethan started to stand, but I touched his shoulder. "It's okay." My father and I stepped into the hallway outside the private room. Then he said, "I failed you." I had waited my whole life for that sentence. But it did not feel like victory. It felt like grief finally being named. I said, "You let her hurt me because it was easier than stopping her." He nodded. No defense. No excuse. Just nodded. "I know." Tears filled his eyes. I kept thinking peace meant keeping her calm. I said that was not peace, that was surrender. He wiped his face. "I'm sorry, Lauren." I believed he was sorry. But sorry is a beginning, not a repair. So I said, "I need time." He nodded again. "I'll give it. And I need you to stop asking me to manage her emotions." "I will." I looked at him carefully. "You understand that means she's going to turn on you." A tired sadness crossed his face. "I think she already has." For the first time, I saw my father clearly. Not innocent. Just finally honest. When we went back inside, Ethan stood as soon as he saw me. Not dramatically. Just instinct. And I realized that was what safety looked like. Not control. Not rescue. Presence. The dinner ended just after 9. There were no big speeches after that. No forced cheer. No fake family photo. Just people hugging me carefully, like they finally understood I had been carrying something heavy and had put it down in front of them. Carol hugged me longest. She whispered, "You never have to earn a place in this family." I closed my eyes. Because I had no idea how badly I needed to hear that until she said it. On the drive home, Mara whispered, "I still can't believe she made a timeline." I said I can. And that was the worst part. When we got home, Ethan asked, "What do you need?" For once, I answered honestly. "I need quiet." So he gave me quiet. No fixing. No pressure. Just peace. At midnight, Mara went home. Before she left, she hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you." I said I was terrified. She said, "Yeah, that's why it counts." After she left, Ethan and I sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet. My phone was not. Messages had started coming in before we even left the restaurant. My sister wrote first. I don't agree with how Mom handled things, but you embarrassed the entire family tonight. I stared at it. Ethan said you don't have to answer. I know. And I didn't. Then my mother texted. Only one sentence. When you are ready to apologize, I will listen. I read it twice. Then I blocked her. Not forever, maybe. But for that night. And the next morning. And every morning after until my nervous system stopped expecting punishment for breathing. Brandon tried to contact me once after that night. I did not answer. He did not know me first. He knew the version of me who did not know how to leave. 2 weeks later, my father returned the $5,000 my mother had taken. I did not keep it. I donated it to a women's shelter. Under the memo, I wrote, "For women rebuilding without permission." My mother did not contact me directly again for almost a month. Instead, she worked through other people. My aunt called once and said, "Your mother is devastated." I said she should be. My sister sent a long message about how family conflict was affecting her anxiety. I replied, then stopped volunteering to carry messages. She did not answer. Good. Peace sometimes begins with silence from people who used to think they had unlimited access to you. After that, wedding planning became simple. Every place my mother had inserted herself was removed. No decision was made from guilt. No decision was made from fear. For me, that was revolutionary. 2 months before the wedding, my mother sent an email. The subject line was, "My daughter." I almost deleted it. But I opened it with Ethan beside me. "Lauren, perhaps the dinner was not handled perfectly, but one day you will understand I was trying to protect you. If you exclude me from your wedding, I hope you can live with what that says about you." Mom, I read it once. Then again. There was no apology. Not really. Perhaps the dinner was not handled perfectly. As if she had overcooked chicken. As if she had chosen the wrong centerpiece. As if she had not taken money from my ex and staged a public ambush at my engagement dinner. I started typing. Then I stopped. I deleted everything. Then I wrote only this. "Mom, you are not excluded because you made one mistake. You are excluded because you planned my humiliation, accepted money for it, lied about it, and still believe my boundaries are a reflection of my character instead of yours. You may attend the wedding only if you can give a direct apology that names what you did without excuses and agree not to contact Brandon or discuss him with me again. Until then, do not contact me through other people." Lauren, I sent it. My hands shook afterward. Ethan brought me tea. My mother never replied. That was her answer. And strangely, it gave me peace. Because I had finally stopped negotiating with silence. Our wedding happened on a bright October afternoon. My mother was not there. I had not reserved a chair for her. And the sky did not fall. The wedding was not perfect. It was better than perfect. It was true. At the reception, my father told me my mother had asked if he was really coming without her. "What did you say?" I asked. He swallowed. I said yes. That one word carried years. Near the end of the night, Mara pulled me outside for air. Music drifted from inside. She handed me a glass of water and said, "So, Mrs. Miller." I smiled. "Don't make it weird." She grinned. "You did it." I looked through the window at Ethan laughing with his brother, at Carol dancing with my aunt, at my father sitting quietly with a cup of coffee, watching the room like someone grateful to be allowed inside it. Then I thought of my mother. Not with rage, not with longing, with distance. For most of my life, I thought peace would come when she finally understood me. But peace came when I stopped needing her too. That was the part nobody tells you. Sometimes the apology never comes. Sometimes the person who hurt you keeps the same story forever. Sometimes they choose pride over access to your life. And you still get to be free. My mother kept telling people her version. For a while, it bothered me. Then one day, I realized I had gone hours without wondering what she would say. Hours became days. Days became a life. Not perfect. Real. I still have that envelope. The text. The receipt. The timeline. But I no longer keep it as evidence. I keep it as proof of the day I stopped being managed. I have not spoken to Brandon since that night. I have not begged my mother to understand. I have not chased my sister for approval. My father and I are rebuilding slowly, with truth finally allowed in the room. And Ethan still asks what I want before assuming he knows. To me, that is everything. Because love is not someone standing at a microphone telling a room they know your heart better than you do. Love is not a mother selling your humiliation and calling it concern. Love is not an ex returning with a plan and calling it destiny. Love is the person beside you when the screen lights up. The friend who says, "Then I'm your family." The father who finally stops translating cruelty into comfort. The new mother who takes your hand without asking you to explain why it hurts. And sometimes love is your own voice, shaking in a silent room, saying the thing everyone else hoped you would swallow. My mother thought I would freeze. She was wrong. I did not leave that dinner rescued. I left believed. And for the first time, my life belonged to me.